Behind the laughter, a secret smoldered. Johnny Carson, America's late-night king, called Bob Hope a legend on air. But offstage, he seethed with contempt. What sparked this bitter feud that reshaped television history? Johnny Carson didn't just host The Tonight Show, he revolutionized it. From October 1st, 1962 to May 22, 1992, his Midwestern warmth, impeccable timing, and genuine curiosity turned a late-night gamble into a cultural institution. For 30 years, he invited 20 million Americans into his living room 5 nights a week, his boyish grin and subtle eyebrow raise speaking louder than words. When Johnny laughed, the nation laughed with him, a devoted viewer recalled, voice thick with nostalgia. One glance, and you knew exactly what he was thinking. Born in Corning, Iowa, in 1925, Carson's roots were humble. A magician's apprentice turned radio announcer, honing his wit in Nebraska's small-town airwaves. His early TV gigs like Who Do You Trust? Sharpened his knack for improvisation, but taking over The Tonight Show from Jack Paar was his crucible. Parr's emotional volatility, storming off air in 1960 over a censored joke, made the show unpredictable. Carson brought stability, his Nebraskan reserve a perfect canvas for comedy. Johnny understood television's soul. Ed McMahon, his sidekick for 3 decades, said with reverence, he knew when to pause, when to nudge, how to save a guest bombing live. It wasn't talent, it was artistry. Carson's genius was preparation meeting spontaneity. He devoured guests' books, films, and records, crafting interviews that felt like chats with an old friend. His reactions, often funnier than the jokes, drew viewers into an intimate dance. He made it look effortless, writer David Steinberg recalled. But Johnny studied like a scholar to make every moment sing. He fought for his crew, securing raises and relocation support when the show moved from New York to Burbank in 1972. A logistical upheaval that tested loyalties but cemented his legacy as a leader. By the 1980s, The Tonight Show was a juggernaut, averaging 17 million viewers nightly and outpacing rivals like Merv Griffin and Dick Cavett. Bob Hope was more than a star. He was an empire. Born Leslie Towns Hope in Eltham, England, in 1903, he immigrated to Cleveland at age 5, scrapping through a tough childhood to conquer vaudeville's gritty stages by his teens. His 7-decade career spanned radio, film, television, and live tours, making him a cultural colossus. Presidents from FDR to Reagan courted him. Soldiers adored his 57 USO tours across 6 wars. And his NBC Christmas specials, peaking at 40 million viewers in the 1970s, were holiday rituals as sacred as Christmas trees. Bob wasn't a performer, he was a machine, an NBC executive marveled, voice tinged with exhaustion. Writers, producers, managers, all fueled by his relentless ambition. Hope's comedy was revolutionary in the 1930s and 40s. His fast-talking, wise guy persona, cocky yet self-deprecating, resonated with Depression-era and wartime audiences craving escape. His road films with Bing Crosby invented the buddy comedy genre, their ad-libbed banter influencing films from Lethal Weapon to Step Brothers. His topical monologues, skewering FDR or gas rationing, broke taboos. Bob made power a punchline, comedy historian Gerald Nachman noted. He gave comedians license to jab at the news, a legacy we see in every late-night host today. Hope's empire thrived on control. His production company, Hope Enterprises, employed dozens of writers to churn out 10,000 jokes annually, feeding his specials and tours. His theme, Thanks for the Memory, became a cultural touchstone. His ski slope nose a punchline as iconic as his quips. By the 1980s, he was a billionaire, owning vast real estate and a stake in the Cleveland Indians. But his comedy stagnated, locked in a formula. Age joke, president jab, golf quip, wife Dolores reference, nose zinger. He was doing a caricature of himself, a former writer sighed. It wasn't creation, it was recitation. Johnny and Bob should have been brothers in arms. Both rose from hardship. Carson from rural Iowa, Hope from Cleveland's slums. Both mastered timing, read audiences like novels, and bore the weight of fame's glare. They were comedy's twin titans, NBC veteran Peter Lasalle said, voice heavy with regret. Bob built the road, Johnny paved it. Respect should have bound them. Their shared craft, honed in vaudeville for Hope, local TV for Carson, should have forged a kinship. On The Tonight Show, the facade held. Johnny introduced Bob with reverence. The greatest entertainer of our time, a true American treasure. Bob fired back with rapid-fire zingers, the audience roared, and their banter seemed warm. Viewers saw colleagues, not combatants. But backstage, the truth was icy. The air turned frigid when Bob walked in. Stagehand Tommy Cole whispered. Johnny's smile was a mask, his eyes cold as steel. It was like watching two generals before a battle. The stage, meant to unite them, became a silent war zone. Hope acted like he owned Johnny's stage, producer Fred de Cordova said, shaking his head. He'd rearrange sets, snap at techs, dictate lens choices. It was like hosting a monarch. For Johnny, who saw his show as a sacred trust, this was a slap in the face. His stage thrived on collaboration. Guests brought authenticity. He gave them airtime. Hope offered only edicts. His entourage, a small army reshaping the set to his specifications. Scheduling was a nightmare. Stars like Robin Williams or Barbra Streisand worked with producers to align dates, respecting the show's rhythm. Hope's team issued ultimatums. Bob's on next Tuesday, they'd declare, blind to conflicts. We'd scramble, booking agent Sally Berger admitted. His specials were NBC's cash cows. $10 million per Christmas show in ad revenue. He had friends like CEO Bob Wright. You didn't say no. This power play cut Johnny deep, who believed airtime was earned, not seized, even by legends. The rift was deeper than logistics. It was a clash of comedy's essence. Hope's style, once groundbreaking, had ossified by the 1980s. His monologues followed a rigid script. I'm so old. My social security number is 1. Followed by a Reagan jab, a golf quip, a Dolores mention, and a nose zinger. It was clockwork, writer Gene Parrott groaned. Electric in 45, exhausted by 85. George Burns, at 90, kept audiences guessing with fresh angles. Milton Berle, in his 80s, leaned into self-parody. Hope leaned on nostalgia, coasting on his status as America's jester. Johnny, a comedy scholar, revered risk-takers. He admired Don Rickles' raw intensity, Jonathan Winters' wild improvisation, Lucille Ball's storytelling craft. Johnny loved performers who lived in the moment, writer Bob Shane said. Hope stopped living there after VJ Day. To Johnny, that was a betrayal of the art. Carson saw television as an intimate medium, where authenticity shone and fakery flopped. Hope, a vaudeville veteran, treated TV like a stage to command, not a conversation to share. The interviews were the breaking point. Johnny prepared meticulously, diving into guests' worlds, reading Philip Roth's novels, watching Scorsese's films, studying Miles Davis's albums to spark genuine dialogue. Hope arrived with pre-approved cue cards, ignoring Johnny's prompts to deliver rehearsed bits. It was like interviewing a vending machine, writer Al Jean sighed. Johnny would ask about Bob's USO tours or Hollywood's golden age, something real, and Bob would pivot to plugging his Palm Springs golf classic. The audience might miss the awkwardness, but the crew saw Johnny's tells. Tight lips, a fleeting eye roll, fingers drumming on his oak desk. Spontaneity was Johnny's oxygen, cameraman Roy Tuttle said. Hope suffocated it. For Johnny, the feud was a wound to the soul. The Tonight Show was his heart, a covenant with 17 million viewers who trusted him to deliver real moments. Hope's transactional approach, using the show as a billboard for his specials or golf tournaments, felt like a betrayal. Johnny once said, he swings a golf club, drops a Gorbachev line, and thinks that's enough. Confidant Dick Cavett recalled, voice heavy. He doesn't earn it, and it kills me. The contrast with other guests deepened the hurt. With Groucho Marx, Johnny traded lively barbs. Their 1971 chat, a masterclass in wit. With Richard Pryor, he leaned in, curious about comedy's new edge in 1975. Even with aging stars like Jimmy Stewart, whose 1989 tales rambled, Johnny gave space, honoring their legacy with grace. Hope offered no vulnerability, no stories, just plugs. It was like he didn't trust the audience to love him without a script, producer Helen Gorman mused. Johnny knew they would. Hope's side carried its own pain. His relentless drive masked a fear of obsolescence. At 85, every appearance was a battle to stay relevant in a cable TV world of MTV and Letterman. Bob wasn't oblivious, friend Phyllis Diller said quietly. He knew Johnny was the new king. Admitting it, that would have broken him. His bravado hid a desperate need to be seen, to prove he still mattered. The feud reflected a seismic shift in television. In the 1950s, when Hope's specials debuted, TV was a novelty, filmed theater for broad audiences, with 15 million sets in American homes. By the 1980s, cable and VCRs fractured viewership, demanding intimacy over spectacle. Carson thrived, his conversational style perfect for a skeptical post-Watergate audience. Hope, rooted in vaudeville's broad strokes, couldn't adapt. Johnny grasped TV's evolution, media scholar Robert Thompson said. It wasn't about performing, it was about connecting. Their treatment of staff widened the gulf. Johnny, though private and sometimes moody, respected his crew. He knew cameramen's names, fought for writers' raises, and ensured housing aid during the 1972 move. Hope's writers, future legends like Mel Brooks, Neil Simon, and Larry Gelbart, earned $50 a week and no credit. Johnny shouted out a great lines writer on air. Dual staff writer Norman Lear said, "Hope, you were a ghost in his joke factory." By 1988, Johnny's patience was threadbare. His dominance was ironclad. The Tonight Show drew 15 million viewers nightly, crushing CBS and ABC. His 1987 contract gave him near total control, including guest veto power. With Mondays off and 6 weeks vacation, every minute of airtime was precious. The final straw came quietly, as revolutions do. No outburst, just a soft order to Fred de Cordova. No more Hope. It was never public. NBC veteran Jim McCauley confirmed, eyes distant. But Bob was persona non grata. His team called, "We said the schedule was full." Done. Banning Hope, NBC's cornerstone since 1950, whose specials generated $15 million annually, was unthinkable. Yet Johnny's clout made it real. He didn't have to bend, executive Peter Lassley said. If he didn't want Bob's cue cards clogging his show, he didn't have to take them. The decision shook NBC. Hope's Christmas specials, filmed at bases like Vietnam or Beirut, were cultural touchstones, earning 25 million viewers in 1987. His ties to CEO Bob Wright and Chairman Grant Tinker were ironclad. There were tense meetings, coordinator Sally Berger admitted. Bob's people couldn't fathom it. They'd push, we'd dodge, then they'd see Burns or Burl on, and know it was personal. Executives tried nudging for special bookings, Carson's 25th anniversary, military tributes, but hit a wall. It came from Johnny, de Cordova said. Non-negotiable. Hope, ever the image crafter, acted unfazed. He praised Johnny in variety interviews, assuming his open invitation held. Bob wouldn't admit he'd been cut, colleague Joey Bishop said. It would have meant admitting he wasn't untouchable. The snub was stark in milestones. Carson's 25th anniversary special in 1987 featured 50 stars. Hope was absent. Vegas weeks, GI tributes, perfect for Hope, went on without him. A 1989 military-themed episode with Bob Newhart and Don Rickles, Hope wasn't invited. It was a Cold War, Hollywood style, historian Robert L. Hilliard said. No shots fired, just a locked gate, Johnny said. My stage, my rules. For a diplomat who brokered peace between feuding stars, reconciling Joan Rivers and Elizabeth Taylor in 1983, the move was jarring. Carson welcomed aging legends with grace. Bette Davis's sharp wit in 1986, Jimmy Stewart's slow stories in 1989, George Burns's cheeky cigars in 1990. He gave them room to shine, director Art Fisher said. But they gave back. Real stories. Real heart. Bob just took. The feud was more than personal. It was a clash of eras. Hope embodied old Hollywood. Mythic stars, studio shields, polished acts. Carson pioneered a new TV age, where authenticity trumped perfection. Johnny rewrote the rules, scholar Robert Thompson said. He showed audiences craved real moments. A laugh, a stumble, a glance. Bob never adapted. When Carson retired on May 22, 1992, at 66, he was at his peak. 15 million viewers, $25 million a year, ratings untouchable. Jay Leno took over and welcomed Hope back in October 1992. But at 89, Hope was a shadow. Delivery faltering, relevance fading. TV had embraced Carson's model. Conversational, raw, real. Jay needed Bob for clout, producer Helen Gorman said, but it felt hollow. The world was Johnny's. Carson's exit was deliberate. Leave them wanting more, De Cordova quoted him. Johnny saw Bob as a warning, someone who stayed too long, who let legend turn to parody. Hope performed into 2003, squinting at cue cards, driven by a need to be seen. When he died on July 27, 2003, at 100, tributes flooded in. Bill Clinton, Tom Hanks, General Norman Schwarzkopf. Carson, reclusive in Malibu, issued a brief statement. Bob was a friend and a giant. Polite, distant, no warmth, no stories. Classic Johnny, writer Bob Shane said, voice tinged with sadness. He honored Bob's place but kept his truth private. That silence spoke volume. For Johnny, the feud was a wound. He'd given Hope his platform, his respect, only to feel used. A prop in Bob's endless self-promotion. Johnny took it to heart, friend Dick Cavett confided. His show was a gift to 17 million people, and Bob's plugs cheapened it. It hurt. Hope's drive masked his own pain, a fear of fading in a world of Letterman and Leno. Bob knew Johnny was the future, colleague Phyllis Diller said, but he couldn't let go. That was his tragedy. The feud's ripples reshaped comedy. Carson's emphasis on authenticity birthed the modern late-night format, influencing David Letterman's irony, Conan O'Brien's quirk, and Jon Stewart's satire. Hope's legacy, topical humor, mass appeal, lives in stand-up specials, but his rigid style faded. Johnny set the template, Thompson said. Today's hosts are his heirs, not Bob's. Network dynamics shifted too. Carson's ban exposed NBC's vulnerability. Relying on aging stars like Hope risked alienating younger viewers. By 1990, NBC's primetime lineup leaned on Cheers and Seinfeld, not specials. The feud also highlighted the power of hosts. Carson's control paved the way for Letterman's CBS deal in 1993, giving hosts unprecedented leverage. The Carson-Hope feud wasn't just a clash of egos. It was a turning point in television's soul, a battle between polish and truth, control and connection. Johnny's quiet rebellion redefined how we laugh, connect, and see our stars. As NBC airs Bob Hope's 1990 Christmas special from Saudi Arabia tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern, ponder the cost of legacy and who paid it. Loved this deep dive into Hollywood's hidden wars? Smash the like button, subscribe for more untold tales, and drop a comment. Does Carson's authenticity or Hope's showmanship resonate more with you? Join us for the next chapter in entertainment's epic saga.
Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more dives into Hollywood's hidden history.